called to order. First, I would like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon world and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenas tardes. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de su celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos de la interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio si desea el audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original people, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systematic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States. From our cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, Diegueño, the Luiseño, Now please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready to get. Ready to get. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
We have 3 members of the public in the room who'd like to speak. We'll start.
It's very concerning with the amount of money that he is. It's very concerning with the amount of money that he is taking that are illegal and putting Sandag at risk for significant litigation and the stalling of projects that are extremely significant, like the port construction contract that was passed illegally last time there was a board of directors meeting. He can't do exactly what he did in the meeting prior, saying that. So it's unfortunate because his abuse of authority is very detrimental to not only the people of San Diego, but to this agency. And absolute power corrupts absolutely, as shown in that, because for him to be paid nearly $650,000 a year and be engaging in such fraud, waste, and abuse and putting you guys up for significant, again, litigation that could potentially cost Sandag millions of dollars, it is millions of dollars. It is very disturbing to think about because he is getting kickbacks. It is evident because the way he passed that item. So it's concerning to see how he would say anything that's going to contradict him being able to get a raise. I highly doubt it.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Purita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier.
Human Services, County, San Diego. I am Purita A. Javier, senior with existing medical condition and a victim of a continuing ceramics film taxi committed on sustainability to abate and
look at, analyze the organizational church. 5 departments entangling, duplicating, and 5. And you know what, sir, Mario? They only conducted the smelling test on July 2020. In the
Seeing none, I'd like to welcome everyone to the July 24th Border Committee meeting. Before we move on, I would like to take a moment to introduce and welcome our new members of the Borders Committee. Mayor Snow is new, as a new committee member. She is the mayor of Lemon Grove, and we will be representing the University of San Diego School of Law and leads the USD Housing Rights Project. She has extensive experience as a litigator and a consumer protection attorney. We are happy to welcome Mayor Snow to the Borders Committee and look forward to working closely together. We also have a new staff liaison, Andrea Humph. Andrea was appointed after a competitive process among staff and will serve as our staff liaison for the next 2-year term. I want to take a moment to thank our former Borders Committee liaison, Hector Vanegas, for his years of work and support of this committee. Thank you so much, Hector. Let's give him a round of applause. Now I would like to turn it over to
Proposed by MTS and North County Transit, and the board ratified that today. Increases are intended to support both agencies' operations amid the budget challenges. It goes in 2 phases. First will be implemented in October 1st, 2026. It includes a binational delegation. Last week we hosted a binational delegation of Mexican state and federal agency officials to discuss ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems, and other technical systems regarding the Alta Mesa East project. I attended the quarterly interagency technical working group for tribal transportation issues in last May, and that group will be meeting again on August 26th at Viejas Casino Resort. Regarding tribal housing, this summer SANDAC allocated an additional $2 grant for the Tribal Advanced Air Mobility Infrastructure and Integration Strategy. SANDAC will be leading the work on behalf of Viejas and 3 sub-applicants: Pala Band of Mission Indians, Mesa Grande Band of the Diegueño Indians, and Lipai Nation of Sana Isabel. Recently, the CTC, in their most recent meeting, allowed in construction of the northbound passenger vehicle facilities. The board also moved forward and approved moving with a contract package on that. Our goal is to have an opening by late 2028, early 2029 of that package. And a reminder that the August recess, as a reminder, SANDAC will be going. The next Borders Committee meeting will be in October.
Thank you so much, Mario. We will now move to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do. If you're online and would like to speak on the consent agenda, please raise your hand now. We have 2 commenters in the room, allegedly Audra, followed by Cesar Javier.
You know, transportation and the demands. What you're trying to do and what you are doing is giving us more options. You're actually and into public transit, which as you guys have, you know, a CEO who's making nearly $700,000, $650,000. And it's like, and you guys are deciding things for people that are just trying to survive. So I don't feel like it's fair for you to sit here and act like, you know, putting people to live where they work and all of these things. You're pushing a United Nations globalist agenda. And it's very disturbing because you don't look at the things that are actually affecting the climate. And you guys are set out to control the people. And that's what you're going to provide. It's just really sad to see the way that you guys work and that, to know that you could course correct, but business as usual as long as you guys make your money.
Like me, we wonder how discretionary the leadership of Sandag, one NGO, the seller or businessman, and consumer, which are the political elected leaders, including county, and unincorporated. We could only wish and dream, Sir Mario, that governance is from conception to the grave of humans. Is on. Looks like we are performing the solemn duty of elected. Supervisor Aguirre said, these people are.
Expired. That concludes the public comments on consent.
Thank God.
Thank you.
Help.
Are there any border committee member comments? Seeing none. If no further discussion, may I have a motion to approve the consent item?
I move to approve. A second.
Moved by Supervisor Anderson, second by Mayor Snow. Can you please vote?
That motion passed.
Item number 4, which includes a panel discussion focused on regional to better understand and help plan for climate hazards and other environmental issues in their communities. For our panel members, we have with us today Kim Smith from Sandag, who will provide an update on the Border Resiliency Plan. Smith, followed by Sebastian, then Darby.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. I'll just jump right into it. So if you can recall, back in May of last year, we came to the committee to introduce the Border Resiliency Plan. We've made significant progress, so today's presentation focuses on our efforts and results to date, as well as discussing as a panel how the plan can serve as a regional resilience tool to identify those adaptation solutions and project recommendations that can be leveraged by our binational partners and stakeholders to secure future funding for projects on the ground that benefit our border region communities. And so first, I'd like just to take a brief moment to remind you of what we are trying to accomplish with this plan. And as you can see on the screen, we endure severe storms, flooding, extreme heat waves, and wildfires, all of which are occurring more and more frequently, and this is made worse with extreme climate events. Which brings us to our plan. Back in the fall of 2024, Sandag was awarded a Caltrans Climate Adaptation Planning Grant to develop just that, a comprehensive plan to address climate resilience and impacts to communities hit hardest in the border region and the transportation network that serves them. And this, as far as the project area, this plan will focus on the communities 10 miles to the north and south of the border, from the Pacific Ocean all the way east to the California-Arizona border. However, understanding how people move across the border region is also extremely important, including those that are traveling beyond the project area, so that the outcomes of this plan can be applied elsewhere in the region. And so moving on to the how, what, and why of our plan, first we'll be looking at how climate stressors or hazards such as temperature, extreme precipitation, wildfire, and sea level rise together with effects related to air and water quality, how those are impacting our multimodal transportation infrastructure and the users within the border region. And is needed. This requires strong binational coordination, and this is happening through our newly formed interagency task force and our robust stakeholder and public outreach, which will then produce our California-Baja California Border Resiliency Plan, which will continuously inform decision-making and the prioritization of process of projects within the California-Baja California border region.
I think, Kim, it may be important that we highlight, can we go to the prior slide before we, what Kim is referring to on the Cali-Baja Border Resiliency Plan, it's taking from some best practices that we did in the past. In the past, we have developed, and it's basically Caltrans as a lead with the state of Baja, the Border Master Plan for Transportation that acted as the blueprint of prioritizing projects within the same radius or area north and south of the border. It was such a success when it was first put out that the federal government has now required that for every single border state in the southern border and in the northern border. It's become the prototype. Our vision is to get to basically a border master plan for environmental and climate resiliency issues also, where we can prioritize projects both sides of the border, understand them, understand what are the funding gaps, what are the funding needs, and who takes lead, and therefore start having those educated discussions and leveraging the different resources and as well as advocacy that each agency can have to help each other to develop those jointly developed projects that will help, you know, if Mexico can do something, let's identify the specific projects so they can go and get those funding for themselves, as well as create a more systematic approach, not just federal to federal government, but also involving the state. And
that consists of our grantor, Caltrans, SCAG, and the state of Baja California. And then so much of our plan will consist of, as we said, gathering information on what's being done. We're not going to be duplicating efforts, but working with those existing environmental groups, forums, task forces, and also getting important feedback from the public. So what have we accomplished to date? Well, we've held 5 successful interagency task force meetings so far with experts from all over the border region to seek input. We've completed our literature review and summary report on those existing projects and work that's already being done in the space. And we're currently wrapping up analyzing the existing data we have collected, and we will be developing a spatial map to help visualize view and use as a tool to see what's going on in their communities. In addition, climate hazard impacts. We did this through a public survey. You can see some of the results on the map on the slide. Those are locations that were taken our public survey out to outreach events and one-on-one stakeholder interviews. And then finally, we are currently researching and identifying those potential climate. And I just wanted to share with you or give you an idea of what the data. This is a screenshot from data gathered on flooding and precipitation within our project area. You can see that by mid-century, the San Diego and the Tijuana sub-areas will experience more intense storms, or that looks like an increased amount of daily precipitation. And that is shown in, you can see the dark blue. And this increased amount of daily precipitation could increase flooding in areas such as the Tijuana River watershed and exacerbate all those sewage flows. And then another climate hazard, such as extreme heat, the data is showing that by mid-century, the region will experience at least 10% more extreme heat days. That is shown in the dark red, so you're looking at more of the inland portions of San Diego, Tijuana, and maybe out in Mexicali. So our next step is to overlay these areas where there are vulnerable populations with these climate hazard impacts. So then we can focus on developing projects and solutions in those areas. As mentioned previously, we gathered inputs on our vulnerable communities and climate hazards through outreach, which included a public survey, Our public survey wrapped up at the end of April, and our survey was looking specifically at how climate hazards are affecting the border region and where specific issues occurred in addition to what impacts were occurring. And some of our key themes, communities responded that they are most affected by heavy rain and flooding and extreme heat following next, but that other climate hazards had impacts as well, so we understand that there needs to be a wide range of solutions. And then other open-ended response themes were that 23 responses for respiratory and allergy impacts, and then sewage and water contamination following. And so we are currently working on, as I said, developing those potential could include increasing transit service frequency during heat waves or installing cooling facilities such as shade and water fountains along active transportation routes. And so these solutions are going to be presented at our next interagency task force on August 11th, so we can get input from our stakeholders. And then as far as next steps, framework for prioritization, we'll be back to in early 2027 is when we will be developing our draft plan, and then we need to complete it by June of 2027 because this is when our grant ends. So before I pass it over to to Sebastian, I just wanted to emphasize again how the goal for this plan is to be used as a tool and a resource for our border region when planning and implementing projects. So with that, I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the committee, for inviting me here today to share about our resilience toolkit. My name is Sebastian Shetty, and I'm a planner with SCAG focused on climate adaptation and regional resilience. For those who might not be familiar with SCAG, we cover 6 counties, 191 cities, and about 19 million people from Ventura to Imperial counties. And the scale of we have many jurisdictions that don't be accessible to. The toolkit is a guide for resilience planning fundamentally. It walks users through identifying the shocks and stressors affecting their communities, setting goals related to resilience, conducting equitable community and stakeholder engagement. It provides example strategies and ways to develop them, and also provides guidance on funding and in advance for recovery from disasters. The toolkit is deliberate and can match the level of depth required by those who are using it. It provides guidance both for a quick qualitative pass at existing resilience programs, as well as for those who want to conduct a full-scale technical assessment. It's also designed so that one doesn't have to read it cover to cover for it to be useful. You can enter it anywhere, and we don't expect anyone to work through all 200 pages in one session. I can communicate about the toolkit's content is that when many people come to the resilience topic within planning, the impulse is to create a standalone resilience plan or climate action plan or a standalone effort. This means taking on the creation of a new document, a new budget line, a new process, and for jurisdictions that are already strapped on resources, this is pretty unlikely to happen. Instead, the toolkit aims to assist jurisdictions with integrating resilience into what they're already doing. The state of California has passed about a dozen bills since 2006 requiring the integration of resilience into existing planning domains. including safety elements, housing elements, hazard mitigation plans, evacuation route planning, many paths. These efforts, since they're already scheduled, budget, and staffed, they don't add additional strain to departments that are carrying them out. And so with the toolkit, what we're hoping to achieve is to make these already existing efforts produce more resilient outcomes. Out of the resources in the shocks and stressors matrix, shocks being discrete events such as disasters or moment in time impacts, stressors being existing conditions that add to the vulnerability of a given community. The matrix provides information on all of these shocks and stressors, as well as ways to measure these and data sources that exist that planners can pull from to doing this kind of assessment. And so it's really made to help get around the idea of starting with a blank page, if you will. Another piece is that we provide a wide range of example strategies and plans, as well as a number of case studies from different kinds of jurisdictions with a wide variety of characteristics. This is meant to address the wide diversity of communities that exist in the SCAG region, but it's also useful in that the through line is requirements that are imposed by the state of California, so it's pretty useful statewide as well. The last thing that I will mention from the toolkit is a particular case study that we've included called Resilient Inland Empire. The main takeaway from this particular program is that the usefulness of the document or process created, it doesn't end with the creation of region-wide vulnerability assessment. This is in part because a wide number of sub-region, they're all small enough and base is it created a really strong foundation upon which the program that created it, as well as the individual jurisdictions themselves, could continue to build off of it. This has since grown into more follow-on efforts, including more resilience plans for these different communities, a regional climate collaborative that is still ongoing, and a third phase that's in process on local and sub-regional evacuation routes in the face of different disasters. The most important lessons that you can take away from this are that uptake of the documents, once they're created, come from one-on-one relationships with staff and between the regional and sub-regional bodies and the local officials and the communities themselves. It can be hard for many stakeholders to translate technical guidance into actionable plans and policies, and so we found that the technical assistance aspect that comes after the publishing of a study or plan is really among the most important pieces for helping integrate resilience into these plans and projects. And so if there's one recommendation we could give, it's to explicitly budget time and resources to this kind of outreach and technical assistance as part of the overall planning process. I'm happy to connect anybody to it as well as answer any questions about it. And I'll note that we're in the process of building follow-on programming, including a series of quick guides that we plan to release that are divided by plan type so that jurisdictions can even more easily access the resources within. And these will be divided into different types of plans, such as community wildfire protection plans, housing elements, you name it. So, yeah, happy to take any questions. My contact info is up here, and I want to thank you again for inviting me here to share.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Darby. I'm the director of the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, and I'm going to talk specifically about a couple of our regional resilience tools that we've developed today. But I'm going to start with introducing myself and the organization in case you are not familiar, but the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, we have been around for 15 years in the San Diego region. SANDAG is one of our founding members, but we are a network-based organization. We have over 70 members partners within that network to advance climate change solutions that both mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change. We do this with our principle that we envision that the San Diego region can be prosperous and resilient. The city of San Diego, which is a really great home for us. We've been there for about 10 years. That research institutional background. So I'm going to talk specifically about tools that we've developed over the last 3 years to support our network of regional partners. I'll also flag from the get-go that all of the tools I'm presenting today are publicly available and free. A lot of them are updated weekly or bi-weekly to kind of keep them on top of things. First and foremost is the Climate and Energy Funding Tracker. So this is really a glorified sortable spreadsheet that lives in a kind of a livable space. Weekly. We first launched this about the state of California first passed the first climate resilience budget package that was $3.7 billion for climate resilience. There's a lot of new programs at the state of California being launched. Subsequently, the year after that, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act also passed, and so there's a lot of federal funding at that time. Folks were emailing us a lot to try to figure out where money was going, where you could access it. So we have our funding tracker. This is a funding tracker that supports, again, real-time needs. We have now added even philanthropic opportunities or just dollars that don't necessarily always fit into that state and federal bucket. The next tool I'm going to talk about is a tool that we launched last fall. So this is the San Diego Regional Plan Tracker. This is a GIS-based mapping tool that documents all of the plans across the San Diego County region that are either adopted currently or maybe in process, but all of the plans that have something in that plan created in a standalone resilience plan all the time, especially for a lot of our smaller cities in the San Diego region. That's difficult to do. So, but also one of the things that we really love to share and make sure that our members and other folks know is if someone makes a plan and they make a really good one, we should share it and make sure that other folks are taking the best parts of it that apply to their cities. And so the goal of this regional plan tracker is quite a few hours on Google trying to find all of these plans, but so you can just go to this one place. You can download all the data. Again, we try to update it as frequently as possible. We also have a feature in plan. So I know, for example, the city of Oceanside passed their climate action plan about 2 weeks ago. It's already in the funding tracker. The other really interesting for this group is the Binational Resilience Initiative project database. So hopefully most folks on this group are familiar with the Binational Resilience Initiative, but this is a philanthropic funded program housed at the San Diego Foundation in partnership with the International Community Foundation. It was launched in 2022 and has since put out over $3.6 million in investment in coastal and watershed resilience projects across the Cali Baja region. The San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative has been a partner on that project since its inception. And one of the things that we do on that project is make sure that everyone knows about the good work that's happening across the Cali Baja region, projects that are being led. And one of the great things about this funding project is that all projects that have been funded have to have a partnership agreement. So there is a funded partner who is working on the US side and a funded partner on the Mexico side working together on a resilience initiative. And so what we did last year was we pulled all of the projects that have been funded since 2022 and pulled them into a database so that people can see where the work is being done in that work. And then as the projects are wrapping up, one of the things that we are working on now is developing case studies for all the projects that are closing out. So that will be 2-pagers really of what worked, maybe what didn't, and how folks are moving forward. One of the really amazing features of this database is that it's available in English and in Spanish. So we want to out of our partners, but also for our Mexico partners. So you can access all of the information. And it is, again, a digital database, so it's living. We are going to be adding to it soon with this next round of funding that comes up. Time is our new project that we've just kicked off, which is SHADE SD, or Solutions for Heat Adaptation and Equity in the San Diego region. So again, San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, we are leading this effort. It is a really collaborative effort in partnership specifically with the cities of Chula Vista, La Mesa, and City of San Diego are our public agency partners on this project. And we're supported by a couple of technical assistance partners, specifically Nexus Research and Planning and WSP. And then we have a really strong partnership with Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UCSD, helping to lead a lot of the technical tools on this project. This project is funded with funding from the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation's Extreme Heat and Community Resilience Program, Round 1. I know Kim touched on this a little bit, but San Diego is heating up. However, I wanted to make sure that folks were aware, it's not just heating up, but also one thing that's been concerning to us is that the worry gap here between our citizens and our community is wide needs of our community members. This is a regional project. Again, we do have those 3 cities that are involved as regional partners, but we are focused on creating resources and tools that can be used at scale. So principles that we're working with City of San Diego, Chula Vista, and La Mesa is that they are all different sizes. They also share borders and boundaries, resilience plans that transcend kind of how we live, work, and play in the San Diego region, acknowledging that it's not always just hot in one place. This is also a project focused on solutions, which I can share as well if there's questions, but one of the things that we are doing is really activating our community networks through this project. So one of the first things that we're doing through this project is trying to understand who's hot in our region and understanding where that geographic and socioeconomic landscapes impact both how and where our communities are affected by both heat waves and heat events. Trying to prepare for that long-term planning of future heat waves, future heat events, and looking at what effective cooling solutions that we can identify. I think we should, cooling solutions are always great because they're all yes and, right? It's really great that we want shade, and we also need to have maybe watering solutions at these different places. So the first step we did was develop the first interactive localized heat risk map of San Diego County. The 3 pillars that we're going to look at, and I will show the map in just a second, but is we were looking at heat exposure. So we have 4 different demographics of heat exposure: daytime heat, nighttime heat, humid heat, and I'm blanking on the last one, but 4 different types of heat, population sensitivity. So I think we have 48 different data indicators of population sensitivity, all the way from age, sociodemographics, whether or not you have health care, to understanding if there are trees in your, locally to your space. So that's our adaptive capacity metric there. One of the things that we do with this heat indicator is that it is a publicly available tool. Folks can look at heat exposure, population sensitivity, and adaptive capacity, and they can create a composite heat risk index, which looks at how the interact together, driver of that risk. And so what you can do is look through the data and see which, be it heat exposure, population sensitivity, which of those might be having a bigger influence. For example, if it's population sensitivity, it might be simply that it's a much lower income community neighborhood and they don't have access to the financial means to turn on their ACs, right? And so just because they have that air conditioning doesn't mean they're able to financially use it. And so there's some of those different types of questions that we can tease out with this heat risk indicator. We can also look at it by census tract, and so you can also downscale the data to map against population density. So not just looking at where it might be heat risk, but also where is the heat risk associated with where people are, so that we can target that dominant driver and different indicators of heat risk with where the relief might be felt the most. So again, this is our Heat Risk Explorer tool. It is publicly available. It looks a little bit like this, but so you can look at all the different data layers. It is only available for San Diego County. We're using a lot of public data. One of the things that we're really proud of is using all of that public access data. That is, it's available. That doesn't mean you can visit the. Although we have learned that because domain, you might have that site blocked, so I will link the correct one in there later, or make sure that Andrea can share it with folks. But we also have a live demo webinar coming up too for communities to join. So I think that's it for me. Thank you so much.
I want to thank our panelists, and I think we're going to take public comment first, and then we'll move back to our board committee member discussion. Francesca, do we have public comment?
Thank you, Chair, we do. First will be allegedly Audra, followed by Cesar Javier.
So interesting talking to people who have been given over to a reprobate mind so they cannot see or hear the truth. Because resiliency will never come when you guys omit the truth and you don't address what is actually causing all of the storms, the fires, the drought. It's very negligent. Because if you guys did care, then you would go and ban that, and that would be the solution. To stop the government from using ionospheric heaters, from cloud seeding, from weather modification and geoengineering. We're being sprayed with extremely toxic heavy metals and particulates that are detrimental to our wellness, along with the weather, along with our ability to make sure that storms aren't happening. And it's so sad because it's like, this affects all of us. And your unwillingness to put something like this into this item just shows that you guys care more about profit over people, because you want your funding to go after your climate resiliency and all of this stuff. But if you did care, you could stop it immediately. But again, you guys can't see or hear the truth, and that's what's so sad, is that you've been given over to this delusion, and so you will stand firm in it. While you gaslight us and say that you care about our health and safety and the climate. It's like, I mean, if we're being sprayed with nanothermite, you wonder why fires get out of control. And then you talk about evacuations when projects are being built where people are being put in danger because there aren't evacuations routes. And you are densely populating high fire zones. I mean, it's just sad to see that you guys are willing to stand on the funding and that you will toss the people aside to ensure that you guys get.
We see to it that our property is protected from heat, from colds, from rain. Simplicity. Your presentation is welcome for academics, students. But we wish, we dream the simple. Look at your colorful things. Do we understand that as public? Or even the elected parameters on education is high school graduate. We're just lucky that we had earned units in urban planning. And we see that the real focus is not only on the outside thing or elements, man focuses. Man focus. Health, safety, human services. Did you know county and the incorporated? What does it mean? I'm sorry, but that's
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our final speaker on this item
Something
will
is
be
wrong,
Fund
sir.
Running in 1672.
And thank you.
Go ahead.
Sandan is giving us the hope, big hope.
Phone number ending in 1672. You're self-muted at the moment. You can go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. So Consuelo here. How can you call Mexico partners? Partners don't pollute their partners' oceans and take zero responsibility for it. Healthy partners hold each other accountable. All these bills passed, all this money thrown around, only for the problems to not be solved. them to grow even more bigger. Scag or scam, again, as the script calls for, you're providing the result of all the problems happening due to the work of big government. Look up outside right now, and those are a reminder, California has a corruption crisis, not a climate crisis. Climate change, the made-up catastrophe used by globalists and socialists to instill fear and guilt to tax, regulate, and remove our freedoms while pretending to be saving the planet. And you are all complicit by playing dumb, while the public you claim to serve continues to suffer at the hands of your decisions. Wake up. We're done.
Thank you. That concludes the public comments on this item.
Thank you, Francesca, and thank to all our public speakers that take the time to come and comment on this item. Before we move to member comments, I have several comments. First, thank you to the people presenting today. I'm sure we'll take whatever discussed here back to our cities and partner organizations, continuing to work closely with our neighbors to the north and identify ways to build on these opportunities together. Being as we are the only region in the nation that has daytime population coming across the border of 100,000 people driving each and every day going northbound and southbound, this is a detrimental topic and close to everyone's heart here in the region. And my first comment deals with the environmental crisis here in our region, the Tijuana River Valley sewage crisis. My question is for all panelists: how can we use some of these tools to tackle this trans-boundary emergency? And we can start with you, Kim, and then I have some other questions.
Thank you. Great question. I know everybody's probably wondering, we've been talking about the border resiliency plan and talking about how that plan can help not just deal with the trans-border sewage, but deal with all the climate hazards we're feeling here in the border region. And I did want to just say that this plan is identifying those climate hazards. We're having to look at those that are impacting our transportation systems within the project area. But I feel that those solutions that we come up with for, let's say it's for example, a potential solution for a hazard related to flooding and extreme precipitation could include retrofitting our stormwater infrastructure, river valley watershed. So we're looking at those solutions that affect our transportation systems, but we're also looking at those solutions that would also have co-benefits and help with the sewage crisis as well.
Sebastian.
Well, the first thing I want to address is that our tools, we don't have anything on binational governance, which I feel like is an important distinction to make. Our tools are designed for California jurisdictions under California law exclusively. I think the most important thing that can transfer is the emphasis on chronic stressors over acute events, because it changes the framework that you approach the issues with, and when you're addressing a continuous issue with it changes who you plan for, who's involved, and how you measure progress to begin with at the base level. That's helpful.
I think one of the most important elements of having the Binational Resilience Initiative and then that network of funded grantees who are now able to connect and work together is creating stronger partnerships within that nonprofit network. Researchers at different academic institutions on both sides of the border, as well as those nonprofits working either in community or in education and other, not just tackle the, you know, infrastructure component of the sewage crisis, but also the social infrastructure component of the sewage crisis, which is, you know, helping to educate communities, also make sure that folks are staying safe. There's quite a few also projects that have been doing community-led green infrastructure solution like design series, and they are now continuing to advance and look for funding to fund those solutions. I think with the sewage crisis, it is again one of those yes ands, in that there's not just one answer on how we're going to solve that challenge for our communities and for our challenge on both communities on both sides of the border. You know, it's a water quality issue, there's also a sedimentation issue, and then there's the long-lasting issue of how that pollution is going to build up in our, you know, systems and ecosystems. And I think some of the solutions within that network that have been funded are really good examples. And then our funding tracker as well, we've, you know, worked with partners across the region to funding that might be applicable for different projects. And so just simply having that, you know, technical expertise and also that continuity, I think that's a role that we play, is to be that continuous partner in, you know, identifying you know, projects that exist or ideas for projects that exist and trying to match them to funding opportunities. So that's a few of the ways that we've been working with our partners in Imperial Beach and South County as well.
I appreciate that. And well, my question for SANDAG staff, Kim, aside of what Baja agencies have been participating? Before we continue.
Yeah, I probably, I can also provide after this meeting the list of our interagency task force, so you can see specifically what agencies, but it's been all the jurisdictions: City of Tijuana, Rosarito, Tecate, Mexicali. We've had all the, you know, federal and state agencies on our side, like the state regional water quality board, but then Mexico component on the other side, which I'm blanking on the name right now, but we've also had, you know, on our side, County of San Diego, Coronado, Imperial Beach, County of Imperial, City of Calexico, and then the state and federal agencies, water, air, and their representatives also on the Baja side.
So you noted that study. However, as we know, the border region's commute partners impact all corners of the county and beyond. Would findings from this work be relevant to improving conditions outside of the study area?
You know, we're hearing from a lot of our partners. We were just up, I think a month ago with you, Mario, up giving a presentation to the Tribal Transportation Working Group, and they had a lot of feedback on the resilience projects they're working on, and so we were able to learn from them, but then they were also eager to see what tools they can.
Well, thank you to all our panel members. I will now move on to discussion among committee members. I would be very interested in hearing your perspectives on how border disruptions, such as climate impacts on workers, mobility, shared production lines, or on transport.
Comprehensive overview. San Diego, there's the Climate Equity Index, which goes further than Calamviro Screen. I think City of Chula Vista has a similar equity index. So how are those being utilized? Because I didn't see that listed in any of the variables used for composite mapping.
I think you're talking to me. So our map looks at, I think there's 47 different variables, and one of the reasons that it's not pulling data from Calamviro Screen. I will also say City of San Diego, yes, they have a climate equity index. City of Chula Vista has a climate equity index. We've actually worked with multiple cities. We had a 8-city application to do a North County climate equity index a few years ago. We put together multiple grant applications that have just not been awarded. So we'd love to see funding for that come into the region to be able to ask different questions. I think we've seen a lot of pushback, not just these or DVCs. And the other challenge that we're also seeing is now with a lot of the new grant programs that the state is putting out, a lot of them are giving a little flexibility and freedom to how to define vulnerable communities in your community, but also not enough guidance or resources to be able to define those consistently. So within our heat risk mapping tool in particular, one of the things that you can do is actually turn on and off different layers. And so part of the intention and goal with having those layers be, that you can turn them on, turn them off, and then run different composite maps is that you can ask different questions about risk and vulnerability. It's not meant to be a singular answer of, that this community is vulnerable, but it's really meant to ask what about this community might be vulnerable to heat. We are increasing that risk. And, again, a good example might be, that this community has a high population of older adults, but it's actually the fact that those older adults also don't have health care, and that the lack of health care is the dominant driver for the risk rather than age. And so, the tool itself is not meant to be a matter of fact, this community's hot day and that community's vulnerable. If you don't have access, you might delay the time in which it takes you to go seek health care. And so I think being able to then ask that question of, well, maybe an element of we need to, and so that's really our intention behind the tool, is to kind of get at what you're saying of, some of the cities have these different, climate. This tool is meant to enable that as well.
Yeah, I think it has a lot of different layers, and I look forward to being able to, do a deeper dive on it. But you pointed out something that I think is important, which is looking at a sub-region that definitely has some structural issues when it comes to vulnerable populations, right? And one of the things I would just lend to this committee, and that I've talked to at the SANDAG board level as well, is that I do think, especially with where the federal government is now, I just looked at one of the sources when I was trying to figure out the methodology, and let's see if I can find it, because it was really, basically has a whole disclaimer about how, let's see, yeah, CDC, the Social Vulnerability Index for a court order HSS version of 12 a.m. on January 29th, 2025. Information on this page may be modified and or removed in the future subject to terms of the court's order and implemented consistent with applicable ideology due to the harms and divisiveness it causes. This page does not reflect reality, and therefore the lies don't feel super comfortable. And so I would like to see just a lot more discussion on methodology and what we're going to utilize. And again, I was going to say this, and then I had to read this, and so I'm going to get back to the point that I was going to make, which is that I really do think that Diego County on vulnerable populations, and then something like that could help us, I think, better move strategies forward in our local municipalities and different jurisdictions, and be able to work in tandem. So I would love to just explore a little bit more. You had more funding. I don't know anything about the North County, mapping for vulnerability. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. But I do think that this has to be a region, a better understanding of vulnerability, utilizing some of the other strategies that you talked about to map. It seems really difficult to get different populations. Transportation not available for folks when they need it to get to their most near healthcare center, because there's not enough healthcare centers. A lot of folks are trying to get that last appointment. There's not enough slots for that last appointment, because that's when they have the one. And then when we're looking at the border, how do we deal with the flooding issue? I mean, that's The extreme heat is difficult, especially with the wait times when you're trying to come back and forth. But I saw on the survey that flooding is just even that much more difficult to overcome. So without having, a big infrastructure, I just don't know what those solutions are. It's very difficult.
Mario also wants to that before I pass it over to Mario. There are some helpful questions on the screen to help spur your thinking caps in the meantime. Mario?
Figuring out the implementation. Any big endeavor, any big journey starts with a couple of first steps, and this is some of them. Regarding our screen, we are here at SANDAG working because we do acknowledge that there's some.
Thanks.
I completely agree with everything you just said. And do we have any more member comments for Valentin said?
Thank you. Yeah, as I just wanted to mention, I'm Valentin Maceda with the San Diego County Water Authority, and presentation at our board meeting yesterday on the regional water management grant. Climate resiliency. So the San Diego County Water Authority has been working on large landscape direct install projects to convert landscape projects in disadvantaged communities, specifically with commercial, on the commercial side. And they're using native plant lists that they've created. They've created two now, the Nifty 50 and the Happy 100 now. And the Nifty 50 is now being showcased at the Conservation Garden in East County, and they're opening up their exhibit next month around the Nifty 50. But I did want to share that. Coordinate with the Water Authority. I'm sure they would be happy to help on some of these drought resilient projects.
To coordinate to see if we can have this presentation and possibly in the next Borders Committee, if possible. So, Colleen Wallace.
Thank you. I'm on transportation for SCAG. Cities.
The survey went out, it's mainly San Diego and Imperial counties is what went out to all of our stakeholders, as many constituents we could get out to. So, and it was really trying to get the information on what climate hazards they're feeling and what's going on in their communities.
I was just mentioned, Mayor Allison Snow.
So I've been trying to think about the practical aspect happen. So do you have projects together that would impact? I know in the East County region, we were, my town was like the epicenter for like where the floods came, so that it hit so hard it overwhelmed our storm drains and opened up sinkholes all across our town. And then right now there's a fire burning in Ramona. And so I'm interested in getting the most bang for my buck done, and the success
that we are currently working on. We did do a project readiness workshop with, I think we had representatives from 14 different agencies. This was a free workshop that we put on for staff, and so had them come with projects for resilience, and we had some consultants donate their time to help kind of level up those projects. We got a lot of really positive feedback on just simply helping to kind of get projects ready for funding that's coming down from Prop 4. So I think these agencies, even nonprofit at that scale, can look at the toolbox and pull out different tools that they want for their own tool belt, and we'll have a and the state or within the southwestern region is by cost, and then see examples of different projects at different costs from the resources to being used, and we can seek funding for other resilience tools, but that's our next step as an organization.
And we have the coming up, and a lot of, I think that's going to be really important to questions about the layering and your maps, and the different questions that are who's being impacted, what are their vulnerabilities, help move, like get the information that we need from the census, and are we working on that at all?
We are support. We do have a pretty wide network of organizations that we work with, but I know that's one of the challenges with data from 2010, which is 2026, which is 16 years old. So I do think this next push for the next census will be really valuable to, even to get to some of your the things that we tried to do with the data in our region.
I would suggest that that's something that our Borders Committee work on, is like 3 years out, and I don't think we're going to get a lot of help from the federal administration, and so we're really going to have to jump on this locally. So bringing all these partners, public and private, together, I think will be really key to making sure we have the best data available.
Andrea, can you make a note of that? And Vice Chair, Eric's choice. I'm sorry, Mayor, were you done? Okay.
Thank you. I go from left to right, I guess. So the Border Resiliency Plan, I was also a little surprised that fires didn't pop up at all in those challenges. Can you speak to that?
Oh, you mean from the survey?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised too. We do have data. The 200 responses were in those inland areas. And if you look at, I can go back, but if you look at some of the point locations, it was more of like the San Diego area, but I was a little bit surprised too.
Later planning documents, I think it's, and I'm sure you've already, timing right now seems like a really big deal, but flooding, and I think in about 6 months, flooding is going to seem like a really big deal with the El Nino coming up. So I guess I'm sure. I don't know if you want to speak to how you've thought about that already, or just I guess take the flag.
I mean, when we put out the survey, was when we kind of rolled out the project. So that is a good point, because you're right, with the future El Nino, it would probably be more.
And then I really appreciate, Sebastian, you brought up the stressors and shocks, like modeling or the way to think about how we integrate that in our general plan. And Darby, you brought up that we it's awesome to see that it's integrated into the work that you're doing. So I know that I'm going to take that model of stressors and shocks. That was what you said, right? And it was good enough that it even stuck in my mind. I didn't have to write it down. But I think that's a really helpful way to look at those things. There's the map. A good map is an excellent tool for planning locally. When we're looking at our CIP project list every year, it falls on us to defend why vulnerable populations are vulnerable, and so it is helpful to have something to refer back to. So I appreciate that that's a publicly available tool for us. And then I also appreciate the collection of funding resources. We get, and I appreciate that. And if there's a way for us to sign up for Oceanside, just pass the clipboard down and we'll take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Oceanside is one of our leading members, and we have multiple staff who do participate in a lot of our working groups, and so it's been really helpful. It's really helpful to have this stuff in our meetings because they're really great.
Well, I just want to mention that several months back, we had the opportunity to join our CEO and our chair with SCAG leadership. We went up north to meet with them, and they were very, I guess, about international trade, climate change, pollution. I would like to take this opportunity follow-up meeting between SANDAG and SCAG for each other and try to work together towards solutions. And also, we were voting on something on the board of directors, and this is exactly why I fear increasing rates to public transportation users, because we're seeing an increase in the border region, and when we raise sometimes the ticket of the trolley we have downtown, it worries me that it's going to get to a point where they're going to say, well, we have this many people going north, we could just carpool forward, that this is the perspective. We have to be mindful into which we're giving directors. I appreciate your time, and if I don't have anyone else waiting to speak, or if you want to have any final comments.
Collaboration between our regions is welcome. Climate, social, economic, and so collaboration is what I'm here to promote. So I'm very happy to hear that, and I'm very interested in following up with you on that. And just want to thank you again for having me here to share our resources with you.
I appreciate your time, and with that, I thank you. And we're going to move on to item number 5. Thank you. Last, to discuss the potential joining us today, please go ahead.
I just want to highlight that Maurice is not just from Cali, PA. He's one of the assistant undersecretaries. Deputy Secretary of Cali, PA. So I didn't want to underestimate his position there. He's in the leadership role and very regarding environmental issues.
We appreciate you joining us, Maurice.
Well, thank you for that, Mario, and appreciate all the leadership here at SANDAG, and it's good to see some familiar faces and some new faces here. Good afternoon, I'm Maurice Lyles, Deputy Secretary for Cali, PA. I'm here to talk to you about a really exciting funding opportunity that's come to fruition. It's one that impacts, I think, everybody every single day, pretty much all day long, and that's the impacts of plastic on in our households, in our families, in ourselves, and our communities. So for today's presentation, I'll start off with an introduction of the problem, the problem of plastics, followed by the basic information overview of the fund, in the statute, and what can and cannot be funded as a result of this plastic pollution mitigation fund. Toward the end of the presentation, I'll have more information on how you can provide additional input. I will say we are still in the input gathering phase, so we didn't want to put out an investment plan without getting community input, without getting jurisdiction and municipality input, because jurisdictions and municipalities can also apply for these dollars. Your input will help inform our investment plan that the state is planning to develop this fall. Going forward, I will continue to engage with stakeholders. Thank you so much. I'll continue to engage with stakeholders, develop grant programs and initiatives as funding becomes available next summer. So how do plastics impact our communities and the environment? The researchers at the Luskin Institute, the Center for Innovation, have been studying environmental justice implications for pollution burdens faced by communities. Useful framework here that helps us understand the implications of plastic related exposures. Plastics don't just appear on our store shelves or in our trash. There's a long journey that touches communities at every step. And so here at Cal EPA and with this fund, we are thinking of this plastic very comprehensively, from oil-based plastics upstream as it makes its transportation to refinery, and midstream the manufacturing and the consumption, and then downstream when we start seeing these plastics in that plastic bag blowing down your municipal streets or blowing into your waters and then further degrading into microplastics. So that is a reality that many communities are experiencing as well. And we refer to these exposures as site-based exposures, and so these are the different streams of how they may be entering into our communities, and in some cases, in many cases, into our bodies as well. UCLA's report organizes plastic health risks into 3 pathways: site-based, so living near or working near fossil fuel extraction sites, refineries, manufacturing facilities; dietary exposure, which is ingestion, which is the largest and most proliferated exposure that I think folks do get, and that's the consumption of goods. A lot of times it's from ingesting the microplastics from plastic wrapping, foods, drinking plastic water bottles, and consuming other goods and exposure that have contacts with the plastics and plastic-related contaminants. And then there's dermal exposure, which is through cosmetics, lotions, other things, fabrics that have a lot of plastics, and then the dermal exposure can also seep into your skin as well. Now, when we're thinking about plasticizers, BPAs, or chemicals added to plastics, it's estimated that these chemicals are responsible, it's a pretty whopping number, for $920 billion in aggregated health costs as a result of plasticizers and healthcare costs. Bottled water in general can lead up to 22 more times more microplastic intake than your tap water. I know there's this misconception that your bottled water is safer and cleaner than your tap water, but in the vast majority of cases, that is not true. There are over 3,000 chemicals associated with plastics in consumer goods that we are known of, and they are known to mutate genes, cause cancer, and alter human hormones. Ingestion is one of the, as I mentioned, is one, if not the most significant route to human exposure to plastic. Widespread use of plastic in the food supply chain means that people are frequently exposed to microplastics when they eat food or drink liquids. As you can see here, because plastics are everywhere in our society, exposure is difficult to avoid. It's in our food that we buy at the grocery stores, it's in our restaurants, it's in our fast food, it's in our takeout containers, it's in the water we drink, and the food that we get from our rivers and microplastics, and we are consuming those fish, so we are recycled. Our ingestion risks only increase as we heat up containers with plastic, and our heat increases the shedding of microplastics as well. Every community is impacted, but the impacts are not evenly distributed. The low-income communities and communities of color carry a very disproportionate share of plastic-related health impacts. These communities see higher uses of consumer goods with toxic metals. They're more than likely to live near plastic facilities. They are more reliant on packaged food and bottled water, which leads to higher overall exposure. This results in more observed adverse health effects, including more low birth weight infants, more asthma-related emergencies, and more emergency department visits. Microplastics are everywhere. Microplastics are everywhere in our ecosystem. Everywhere that scientists have looked for microplastics, we've found it. There's not a place that we have not. And what does this tell us? That this is not just a human behavior issue. This is an overproduction issue as well. As we've probably seen, the rate of plastic in just like everything, because it's a cheap good that can just be formed into so many useful things, but there are, while there's the benefit, there are the consequences that arise with that. So they enter our environment by washing off our streets and highways. I think we were just talking about flooding that happens just recently, and the storms that come. What does that mean when those rains come and where those waters come? Because there are plastic chemicals also in the tires that when they degrade as they drive down our streets. Those flakes from artificial turf, tires, clothing, agricultural products, discarded fishing gear, and even dust, they have some impacts that get washed into our communities as well. They can be transported by stormwater runoff, rivers discharged by waste treatment plants, and I think we know this in San Diego very well, more than many others, is those impacts, and they sink into our soil, sediment, snowpacks, we don't get enough snow here, and make our way into the marine life and animals for use. So here's a bit of an overview of the Plastic Pollution Fund. This is the exciting portion of it, so I know to the grand total sum of $5 billion. The purpose of this fund is to mitigate plastics on tribes, communities, and the environment. It's to address environmental concerns as they relate to plastic, and also protect the public health of communities, tribes, and disproportionately impacted and burdened communities by plastic pollution. And so we can largely think, as there were conversations around the Tijuana River earlier, and the state operates a trash boom down there, so if you're aware, and about over 60% of the debris that's captured in that trash boom is plastic as well. So how are the funds available? The funds will be available upon appropriation by the legislature. 60% of the funds are for mitigating historical and current environmental justice and public health impacts of plastic pollution on our communities, and 40% of the funds are dedicated to restoring and protecting the natural environment. Here is some text from the actual legislation itself. I'll let you all read that on your own, and the slide deck will be available government entities named to administer these funds are Cal EPA, California Environmental Protection Agency. We are the lead agency that is overseeing this fund. We are also partnering with our sister agency, CM, as the Strategic Growth Council. And for the 40% of the funds are intended for mitigating the environmental impact. And here's what the statute reads as well. The same government entities are named in this as well as some of the boards, departments that fall up. It reflects, some of the principles we're proposing and using to guide us through this work, and process, and start shaping what could be funded. These include having meaningful discussions through tribal consultation, prioritizing community-led solutions. I actually held a Plastic Pollution Mitigation Fund water conversation here, I think about a month or so ago. Had a really good turnout for that, provide meaningful benefits to other communities and disadvantaged communities. And when we're talking from a state perspective about using the term disadvantaged communities, that is a very specific term that we are referring to, and I believe Cal Enviro State designate communities as disadvantaged communities. Economic issues and health issues that will rank. We have 7 pillars that we're thinking about how funding can work. The first is outreach and education. The general purpose would be to increase community understanding of the environmental and public health impacts of plastics and its life cycle, and to influence public behavior of the use of plastics. Efforts are underway, and under this category should focus on harms of plastic and actions that can be taken to reduce the use of plastic exposure on our children and our communities as well. There's research and monitoring. We know from our state scientists and colleagues in academia that there's a lot that we do not know about plastics and about how to effectively mitigate plastics. So we're looking to do a lot more research and monitoring. For example, we don't have a good sense of the level of plastics related to pollutants in our waterways, soil, air, and other relevant data across the state to fully assess the exposure and health impacts at the community level. So we look to partner with local jurisdictions as well, even with partnering with our state agencies and local jurisdictions to identify, the level of plastic toxicity, in your waterways, related health risks. As I mentioned, an example of this would be protective measures or advisories related to subsistence fishing, gathering, traditional as well. There's also community-led pollution and prevention. This could be community-designed initiatives to support the reduction in plastic use, the removal, restoration, and remediation. I had a conversation recently, and someone's like, "Oh, can this be focused on the San Diego River? Can this be focused on the New River to address some of the plastic burdens there?" And the answer is more than likely yes. And it's just, how is Sandag or this region going to come up with a community-led solution or plan to be able to do so? The state is happy to partner and offer our expertise in helping shape those plans as well. These can be used for the fundamental purpose to address the legacy of ongoing plastic contamination. Activities can include habitat restoration in plastic-impacted areas, nature-based solutions that reduce plastic exposure, or new containers for communities as well. This purpose would be to protect communities from the environmental impacts of plastic. And also, we're thinking about economies of scale and capacities. And jurisdictions have the same capabilities. So we're really looking at technical assistance and providing a technical assistance model that supports those disadvantaged communities and those with less capacity to help them shape their applications and their understandings of plastics so they can make meaningful impacts on the impacts that have occurred as a result of the plastic industry proliferating our communities, jurisdictions as well. What cannot be funded? So another portion of this is the Producer Responsibility Organization. I wish I had time to bring them here. It's the Circular Action Alliance. And so they are funded by the plastic producers, and they of that nature, they have the funds. There's a responsibility that SB 54, the bill that put this fund into Cal EPA's hands, that has mandated that the plastic producers also take ownership and find ways to reduce their plastic burdens that they have. This fund as well. So right now we have been doing, like I said, general outreach. I'll say that at the end of August, we will no longer be soliciting input for this portion of the fund. We'll begin working out an investment plan as well, and then take further information and fine tune that investment plan. Also, I will say, like, right now this input opportunity is available. I will show you, hopefully my staff put this link on there, that there's a survey that you can take or have your leaders, your jurisdictions take, that have an opportunity to be on record to say like how you would like this fund to be leveraged and used to benefit the communities in your neighborhood, to benefit and address some of the challenges in your community. And so we wanted to reach out to communities and leaders first before we actually started drafting the investment plan. I know a lot of times people see the investment plan first and then they get to put input. We're trying to lead with community-led. Here is a QR code that leads to our MF, our Plastic Pollution Mitigation Fund. You can fill out our survey and be on record for this as well. And then if this is being recorded, if any comments or input are put in, I will also record those and then share those with our team. And we can also make sure that those are put on record for Cal EPA, CNRA, SGC, as we begin making and rolling out begin crafting our investment plan and rolling out the input that we've received. You can also on our website sign up for engagements. You can also go to calepa.ca.gov and you can navigate that webpage to our Plastic Pollution Mitigation Fund webpage. So thank you very much. Happy to take any questions on this important fund. Like I said, it's $5 billion, $500 million a year per year for the next 10 years, beginning in July of 2027 when the governor signs the budget.
I appreciate this presentation more than you can imagine. Well, first we're going to go to public comment. Francesca, do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Chair. We do. We'll start with allegedly Audra and then Caesar Hutton.
How exciting, $500 million a year. You guys get to get your little piece of that, right? You'll do anything for money. Money whores will do that. I don't know that we can trust people who are going to claim to mitigate this when we've been dealing with the Tijuana River Valley for decades, when you guys think that toxifying water and adding things like lye and chlorine and having fluoride in there, which are neurotoxins, is good for us. People who will inject themselves with human DNA and very toxic substances as well. People who really bring shit if it was like you guys could do anything if money's involved. That's what's so sad. And yet you sit here and you act like you're doing something. You know, if you guys really wanted to do something beneficial, you could recycle the plastic into gas and then give people an incentive to actually recycle it so that they could go get some gas for cheaper. But why would you do that? Because that doesn't fit into your climate. Your propaganda updates are red, and it's sad that you sit here and gaslight the people that you care about public health and safety, and you want to use this money to give propaganda updates. So it is just sad to see that your racketeering and all of your nonsense continues to go on, but it's good because at least people can see what you're up to, and that way they can open up their eyes to the reality of what's really going on around us.
Our next speaker will be Cesar Javier, followed by Consuelo. Consuelo will be our last speaker on this item.
Thank you, sir, for the propaganda, promotion, or marketing. We have learned lessons here since we began engaging because we are worried about health impact, safety impact, particularly me and my wife. And in fact, stores are providing they're starting. Home Depot still have plastics. We know that. Food for Less and still, paper bags, etc., etc. My question is, you're after health survivability of children to the fullest extent of the law, not to threaten the elected official. That was my language that caught me. Somebody said it to me, not me actually. It should be to the full extent of the law. Sir, with all respect, why plastic only for grants? Why something, mobility, circulation measures to clean the mess in Tijuana River pollution, and how to cure, care, feed, shelter the victims of 10,000 as declared by Ma'am Aguirre at the County Board Supervisor meeting. How do you
And correction, important dues that is probably getting paid way more than you deserve, dude. All plastics end up being absorbed into all bodies, not just some, on reproductive organs and even unborn babies. Got it? Okay. This information you just shared is nothing new. The alarm has been sounded on this issue for decades, but I'm glad this government agency is finally catching up to what most of us already know. So difficult. So instead of penalizing people, instead, government continues to tax the people for ridiculous reasons. So the answer is to fund another program for the community to understand how plastics are affecting them instead of going after the source, which is again the companies that continue to use plastic. Another wasteful program just to save face and to get some change. So gross, so disgusting. You guys are all just unbelievable. So corrupt. I'm done.
Thank you. That concludes the public comments on this item.
Well, again, Maurice, I can't appreciate enough that you're sharing all the representation. My office involved in advocacy for public health and the passage of SB 54 before it passed actually in 2022 because of the lack of information. We need to do better advocacy and help you, and I know you put the information on the screen where we can go and provide feedback and all the support and comments, and I appreciate that. I will begin by saying that I would like to encourage members of the Borders Committee and members of the solution that were comments. Do you need any support? What else can we do as cities?
Folks can fill out there, so feel free to use that so that your concerns are listed on record. Yes, it is actually plastic in our communities.
Well, I mean, I know everyone's passionate about this, and microplastics now is in everything, right? In our seas more than anything, in everything that we consume, and in everything that our air pollution, every single thing that we encounter, there's microplastics.
On a river sewage crises, I think it's probably one of the largest, if not the largest, consistent flow of plastic pollution coming into the state, aside from the producers themselves. And so I'm sure the application, I think it's about this region coming up with a regional solution on how these dollars can be applicable to address what those community needs are.
I appreciate it. Mayor Snow?
I think SANDAG's probably the perfect organization to take lead on that, coming up with a regional solution instead of, I was already thinking of ways for me and my city to come for this money and stuff. We've been trying to get plastics initiative going, and Crisis there in Tijuana is doing it and really making sure that we're, as a region, have identified this issue, and that's where we would like.
Where does it go? Where does the plastic go after that?
Yeah, a lot of times they go to other countries. I mean, the reality is they go to different countries, and the countries then use those, then recycle them and try to repurpose them. In some cases, in some cases they do become waste as well. So those are all big concerns about recycling. Now, I think our focus is, and what we would like to see at Cali, PA, more intentionality around the circular economy. So how does plastic or any type of recycling that we do come back and not just go into
Vice Chair Eric Jones.
I saw him teach teach 5th and 6th graders. As part of us hearings on it and weighed in because they up, this is your cancer now. And so it's a major education effort on top of the resources to get out of the draw to an 89-cent plastic water bottle versus, the canned waters, or even like they have them in the what looks like the old milk cartons now too. Like just getting out of these systems that have been built by the cheapness that it is to produce a plastic water bottle. So I appreciate it. I definitely know our city will be looking to work on this as well. We know that the microplastics are found everywhere, and that includes in the fetus of unborn children. So they're already getting the plastic before they're even exposed to the outer world, which is staggering. So thank you again, and I appreciate the work on this and look forward to working together.
Thank you. This monumental issue.
That is a fact that many of us didn't know. The fetus of unborn children.
I think when you saw the number, like we're getting $5 million, when you see the healthcare impacts, it was $920 billion in healthcare cost impacts. And that's a lot of it. That is due to the microplastics in our body and the impacts of plastics on our lives.
Anyone else that wants to come? Corina Contreras.
Just for a clarification, and thank you so much. I definitely also want to lend my support for coming up with some kind of a strategy here at Sandag, but I am just curious, I can't remember which jurisdictions or agencies are eligible for funding?
Cities and counties are eligible.
Okay, but so would Sandag be eligible then, because it's an MPO?
I would have to look into that, so I can follow up with an email and see if MPOs are eligible.
Okay, and if they're not, is there any, is it too late to advocate that they should be?
It is not.
Oh, fantastic, okay. So we look forward to hearing back from you, and if for some reason it's not, I'm sure that we would collectively like to advocate for MPOs to be a part of that. So
You have to turn on your mic, please. Up, the button's in the middle. That one.
Oh. Is that good?
Yeah.
It's just my second meeting here, and I'm very interested in what goes on. But the plastics thing's been known for a long, long time. And I myself use a metal water bottle. There's not much we can do, but we cannot blame just the plastic producers, because they have no incentive to take back their bottles and recycle them. Or, like someone said, use them to make gasoline. We seem to be concentrating only what the public needs to do, rather than what business needs to do. As with what happens in the Tijuana River, it's not just the people, it's the American companies that go to Mexico because they don't have to adhere to any of the environmental issues. So they put their, what would be illegal items here into the water that goes and still contaminates us. So I think we need to do more about making government responsible, or making government responsible for the builders, the developers.
Have to come up with an alternative packaging solution for food products.
Imagine a world where we don't have plastic bottles. Imagine. Anyone else that wants to comment before?
If it's not, I'll double check the date. I believe it's 2030. If I'm wrong, I will make sure I share it with the same
Well,
team.
with that, Maurice, we want to thank you for your time, for coming down, for this incredible, informative presentation and your advocacy. Future generations, I'm sure, are in great debt to you and everyone who's been advocating advocating for this important issue. So I want to thank you, and we're going to be moving on. Thank you, Maurice, and I'm sure we're going to be following up with Sandag to make sure that great discussion. Now let's move. The next quarter is at 1:30 p.m. And
talk about fraud, waste, and abuse. Anyway, everybody have a great Friday. See you next time. Join me tomorrow for Operation Unredact. So anyway, God bless you guys.